It was supposed to be just another polished appearance. Vice President Kamala Harris took her seat center stage at the National Town Hall on civic leadership, the lighting precise, the questions pre-screened, the applause carefully timed. She smiled, nodded, and leaned into the microphone with the polished grace of someone who had answered 1,000 questions without saying anything new. And then, Denzel Washington showed up. Not as a guest. Not as a performer. As a citizen. As a man with a question, and no intention of letting it be ignored. "I'm not here for a cameo," he said, standing from his seat in the audience as the moderator called on him. The crowd shifted. Heads turned. Phones lifted. Kamala paused mid-sentence, caught off guard. Denzel didn't raise his voice. But every syllable hit like truth breaking through a wall of spin. "We voted for truth," he said, eyes locked on hers. "Not theater." The room froze. Kamala smiled tightly, that political kind of smile that hides calculation. "Mr. Washington," she said, "I'm happy to engage, but let's keep this civil." Denzel cut in. "Not rude, just unshakable. Civility isn't silence. And with all due respect, you've been civil for 4 years while people's lives fell apart." Gasps. A wave of tension. Even the moderator looked unsure. Kamala leaned forward. "This administration has delivered results." "Delivered speeches," Denzel said flatly. "You speak of justice, but where were you when the eviction crisis hit my city? Where were you when kids in South LA couldn't get Wi-Fi for school?" Kamala's posture shifted. "Denzel, with all due. I'm not here for a press clip," he said. "I'm here because we keep clapping for performances while the country bleeds backstage." The crowd didn't clap. They didn't boo. They just listened. That rare kind of stillness when real confrontation happens, not for drama, but for truth. Kamala steadied her tone. "This isn't a film set, Mr. Washington. Policy takes time." "So does suffering," Denzel replied. "But suffering doesn't get a teleprompter." A beat. A crackle in the air. The moderator attempted to move on, but no one was moving. Denzel stayed standing. Kamala took a breath, eyes narrowing slightly. "If you want to lead, you have to be in the room when decisions are made." "I've been in rooms where real people cry because no one with a title listened," Denzel shot back. "I don't want your title. I want your honesty." The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in something deeper, resonance. And just like that, the conversation had left the script. Kamala Harris stood firm, leaning slightly toward the mic. Her voice was calm but guarded. "I respect your passion, Denzel," she began, her tone smooth. "But real policy, real justice, takes time. It takes compromise. That's the reality." Denzel nodded slowly but didn't back down. "And while you compromise, we break. While you negotiate, families collapse." The crowd was silent again. A few murmurs rippled through the audience. Eyes bounced between them, two powerful figures on opposite ends of a single truth. "You talk about progress," Denzel said, "but I've walked through neighborhoods where nothing's changed since the 90s. Where's that progress showing up?" Kamala didn't flinch. "We've passed legislation to increase accountability in law enforcement. We've expanded education grants." Denzel raised a hand. "Respectfully, stop. Stats don't shield kids from stray bullets. Reports don't fix broken schools. You want to talk justice? Let's talk about the mother in Chicago who couldn't afford both rent and her child's insulin." Her jaw tightened. "That's exactly why we've pushed for healthcare reform." "Pushed?" Denzel cut in. "People are dying while you push. You talk about being in the room. But if the room isn't hearing screams, then it's just another soundproof bubble." Kamala took a slow breath. The tension between them was real, not for cameras, not for headlines. For the people watching who had been waiting too long. "I'm here," Denzel continued. "Not to be applauded, but to ask the question you avoid, whose justice are we talking about? Because it's not ours. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't boo. They just listened, still, like truth had walked in and sat beside them. Kamala straightened her posture. Then let's stop yelling past each other. I haven't raised my voice, Denzel said softly. I've just raised the standard. The moderator looked stunned. And the room, still frozen, waited to see who would blink first. Kamala leaned forward now, resting both hands on the table. You want to raise the standard, Denzel? Let's talk about what that looks like. Because standing here with a mic isn't the same as standing in the Senate, where every word is a battlefield. Denzel met her gaze without blinking. You think this mic gives me power? No. It gives me pressure. I didn't get here by smiling into cameras. I got here by burying friends and speaking at too many vigils. A few gasps slipped from the crowd. Kamala's lips tightened, but she stayed composed. I don't question your pain, Denzel. I question the way you weaponize it. Denzel cocked his head. Weaponize it? You stand on stages funded by lobbyists and tell us what change might look like, someday. Meanwhile, we're living in the wreckage today. The moderator attempted to step in. Let's keep this constructive. Denzel waved him off. You invited me to be honest. Don't flinch now. Kamala narrowed her eyes. You speak like you're the only one who knows struggle. I've spent decades fighting for rights, civil, voting, reproductive, while being told to sit down and smile. I'm not asking you to smile, Denzel replied. I'm asking you to stop turning pain into policy bullet points. The studio lights caught the sheen of sweat forming on Kamala's brow, but her voice stayed steady. It's easy to demand from the outside. And too easy to forget from the inside, Denzel fired back. The audience was locked in. Phones were up, feeds live. No filters, no edits, just fire on both sides. You know what's dangerous? Denzel added. It's not outrage. It's numbness. It's when a nation hears about another shooting, another injustice, and just scrolls past. Kamala's jaw clenched. And what's your solution? Just shout louder? No, Denzel said, low and clear. Speak clearer. And stop pretending everyone has the same mic you do. That line hit. Kamala's reply hung in her throat. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't clap, just absorbed. The moderator looked between them, lost in the weight of the moment. Back to you, he said, barely above a whisper. Kamala sat upright, voice now sharpened. You speak of numbness like it's new. I've lived with it since I was sworn in. Every time I push a bill, I'm told to wait. But waiting doesn't mean we're not working. Denzel leaned in. And who are we working for, Kamala? Because I hear a lot about plans, but not about people. She shook her head. That's not fair. It's not supposed to be, he cut in. It's supposed to be honest. A murmur rolled through the audience. Cameras zoomed in. Somewhere backstage, a producer whispered into a headset, "Don't cut." Kamala exhaled through her nose. You're turning this into performance. Policy takes more than sound bites and fury. Denzel stood, not pacing, not grandstanding, just standing, calm but heavy. Performance? I've watched kids I mentored get gunned down. I've walked mothers to funeral homes. You think I want this spotlight? She stayed quiet. I'm not here because I crave attention, Denzel continued. I'm here because too many of us don't get heard unless we shout through pain. Kamala replied carefully, change takes coalition. We can't build it through blame. But we can't build it through denial either, he snapped. This country didn't vote for more speeches. We voted for truth. We voted for action. She clenched her fists in her lap. And you think shaming me on air helps that? No, he said plainly. But silence definitely doesn't. The moderator leaned into the mic, trying to regain control. Let's take a quick break. No, Denzel interrupted. Let's take accountability. For a moment, the room was frozen in friction. Then someone in the audience shouted, "Let him finish." Another voice added, she needs to answer him. Kamala's eyes darted to the crowd. Her confidence wavered for just a breath. Denzel lowered his voice, but it only made it hit harder. This isn't theater, Kamala. It's people's lives. And right now, they don't need applause, they need answers. Kamala finally stood. No podium. No filter. Just her and the moment. You want answers? Fine. I've spent decades in this system, trying to fix it from within. I don't get to scream. I don't get to walk out. I fight with policy, not passion plays. Denzel didn't blink. And what has that policy given us? A slower death? A neater obituary? Gasps rippled. One man in the second row whispered, did he just say that? Kamala lifted her chin. You don't get to reduce this to dramatics, Denzel. You have a platform, use it responsibly. He pointed toward the crowd. I am. Right now. She countered, then why does this feel more like a speech than a solution? Denzel paused. Let the silence stretch. Because speeches are all we've been given for too long, he said quietly. So I figured I'd try speaking your language. The moderator jumped in, let's bring this to a productive direction. But the audience wasn't ready to move on. A young woman in the third row stood up. I'm a social worker in Milwaukee. Everything he just said? That's my daily reality. We don't need rehearsed responses. We need someone to feel it. Kamala's face tightened. I do feel it. But feeling alone doesn't fix broken laws. No, Denzel said, but it stops you from passing broken ones. A stunned hush. No one clapped. No one moved. He softened for just a moment. I know you care. I know this isn't easy. But when people stop trusting those in power, it's not because they're cynical. It's because they've been left behind too many times. Kamala looked down, then back up. And what would you do, Denzel? If you were me? He didn't miss a beat. Listen. And then stop talking like pain is data. Kamala stepped forward, eyes steady. You think I don't listen? I sat with grieving mothers. I walked the halls of prisons most senators won't even mention. Don't lecture me on pain. Denzel didn't flinch. Then why does it still sound like a TED Talk every time we ask for change? The audience stirred again, shifting, leaning forward. Kamala's jaw tightened. You want real answers? You don't show up at a town hall with headlines and heat. You work. You compromise. Denzel smiled, but it wasn't warm. Compromise got us mass incarceration. Compromise got us minimum sentencing laws. Compromise got my neighbor's son 10 years for weed while hedge fund frauds fly private. The moderator interjected, let's try to. No, Kamala said sharply, eyes locked on Denzel. Let's finish this. She took a breath. You want to throw fire? Fine. But when you burn down the structure, don't act shocked when there's no shelter left. Denzel's voice lowered, slower now, deliberate. If the structure never sheltered all of us, then maybe it was never a home. A long beat. That line echoed across the hall. A student in the back clapped once, then stopped, unsure. Kamala looked around, then back at Denzel. I'm tired of being the punching bag for people who never sat in my seat. I'm not perfect, but I showed up when others stayed safe. Denzel nodded. So did I. And I didn't come with scripts. I came with scars. That landed hard. The tension wasn't rage, it was recognition. Two people who'd seen the same storm from opposite shores, shouting across it. Neither one backing down. Neither one walking away. Just standing there, holding the weight of everything unsaid between them, the moderator leaned in again, clearly rattled. We're not here to litigate each other's lives. Let's refocus on policy. But no one in the room was listening to him. All eyes were locked on the quiet war unfolding between two voices that refused to be edited. Denzel took one small step toward the center. You know what I realized? People don't fear the truth. They fear losing control of the story. Kamala didn't blink. And you're here to rewrite it, I suppose? I'm here, Denzel replied, to remind people that real stories don't come with applause signs. Someone in the front row whispered, "Damn," under their breath. Denzel turned slightly to the crowd now. How many of you have ever felt like the American dream was written in a language you were never taught? Hands didn't go up, but faces did change. Expressions softened, brows furrowed. Kamala folded her arms. So now we're doing poetry? No, Denzel said firmly. We're finally doing honesty. A beat of silence. Then he continued. You want to lead? Show me you can walk into a room full of people who don't already agree with you, and still stand tall. Kamala took a breath but didn't speak. Her posture shifted, not defeated, but reflective. The camera zoomed in subtly. Even the producers backstage could feel it. This wasn't theater. It was tension turned tangible. And it was working. Some in the audience nodded. Some looked conflicted. This wasn't a debate anymore. It was a mirror. And everyone had to look. Kamala finally stepped forward again, her tone lower now. You think I don't know what's at stake? I've walked with mothers who buried their sons. I've fought to change systems built before I could even vote. Denzel tilted his head. Then why do so many feel like those systems are still intact, and we're just patching over the cracks? A murmur rippled through the room. Kamala's jaw tightened. Because change takes time. Time? Denzel echoed. We've buried generations while waiting on time. Maybe it's not more time we need, maybe it's courage. Kamala didn't answer immediately. Her eyes scanned the room, then landed back on him. You think I'm afraid? She asked, voice nearly trembling, but not from weakness. Denzel shook his head. No. I think you're tired. And I think tired leaders start protecting institutions instead of challenging them. The words stung. Not just for Kamala, for many in the crowd who wore suits, held power, and thought they'd mastered the language of politics. But this wasn't political language. This was lived language. A teacher in the second row wiped a tear. A construction worker near the aisle leaned on his knees, still. A young girl, maybe 14, sat beside her father and whispered, "Why are they so mad but not yelling?" He answered gently, "Because it matters." That answer said more than the speeches did. On stage, Kamala took a longer pause than before. She stared at Denzel, then looked past him, to the crowd. We can't burn everything down, she said. But maybe we need to admit some rooms were never built to hold all of us. Denzel didn't smile. But for the first time, he nodded. The crowd didn't erupt. But they leaned in. Denzel took a slow breath, eyes still locked on Kamala. That's the first thing you've said tonight, he said quietly, that felt like it came from you, not your office. Kamala didn't flinch. You came here looking for a fight. But maybe you were just looking for someone to stop rehearsing and start being real. No, Denzel replied, I came here wondering if truth still had a seat at the table. Turns out, it might. From backstage, one of the producers whispered, this isn't just a panel anymore. This is a reckoning. The moderator, now mostly forgotten, sat back in his chair, speechless. Kamala stepped forward again. Let me ask you something, Denzel. You speak for the voiceless, right? No, he said plainly. I speak so they remember they have a voice. Kamala exhaled. Then help me hear them better. Because speeches don't reach every street, and policies don't mend every wound. A strange quiet fell. Not tension. Not awkwardness. Recognition. Across the room, political labels blurred. Staffers lowered their notepads. Citizens raised their eyes. A conservative veteran in the third row shifted in his seat. A progressive activist crossed her arms tighter, but neither looked away. Something had happened. Not surrender. Not victory. But a rare, fragile pause. And in that pause, Denzel stepped back, not out of retreat, but to give space. Kamala turned to the audience. If this is what uncomfortable truth sounds like, then maybe we need more of it. Denzel nodded. Not just on stage, he said. In our homes. In our hearts. On the sidewalks where America actually lives. There were no cheers. Just breath. Just thought. Just a nation, watching two opponents turn a battlefield into something closer to a bridge. As the moderator finally found his voice again, he leaned toward the mic. Well. I guess that's one way to redefine civil discourse. No one laughed. The air hadn't reset yet. Denzel took a final look at the crowd, then back at Kamala. You said earlier that leadership is about responsibility, he said. So here's mine: speak when it's inconvenient, listen when it hurts, and stay when it would be easier to leave. Kamala's face softened. And I'll add this: if your voice only echoes where you're safe, you're not leading. You're just repeating. The words hung between them like a truce signed in silence. Cameras flashed, not for spectacle, but preservation. People would replay this moment again and again, not for the drama, but for the discomfort that birthed clarity. Backstage, one staffer texted a single line to his colleague. They didn't agree. But they didn't destroy each other either. In a time where every debate ends in digital warfare, this one ended in something almost radical. Reflection. Denzel stepped off the stage without fanfare. Kamala stayed behind for questions, now answered with a different tone, less polished, more present. Outside the auditorium, people didn't rush to their cars. They stood in small circles. Talking. Questioning. Listening. As Denzel reached the exit, a young woman caught up to him. You didn't yell, she said. But I heard every word. He gave a small nod. Then it was worth it. And with that, he disappeared into the Dallas night. No press conference. No victory lap. Just a man who refused to shout, and still managed to shake the room. They didn't agree, but they didn't destroy each other either. In an age where loud wins, tonight was a reminder: calm can cut deeper. If this shook you, inspired you, or just made you stop and think, then subscribe, because CB Stories isn't here to echo the noise. We're here to spotlight what the headlines avoid. See you in the next one.